one of the common themes that I hear again and again, especially when I listen to people in white coats that they've earned speak, is that there are so many people out there who toil away invisibly keeping us safe. And we don't even know it until they're targeted. I'm talking about the virologists and immunologists at the CDC, the food inspectors at the FDA, the air traffic controllers, right? I'm a Navy pilot. Until they start getting fired. And until planes start crashing or bird flu starts to wreak havoc. I think we take for granted just how fragile the system can be when it's up against people who don't care about science. Something that Dr. Lavin said stuck with me. It's pretty simple. If you don't believe in science, I guess you can't do the math. 0 cases means 0 deaths, right? That seems pretty obvious to me. But I fear that we're being led by people who believe more in dogma than science, and it's literally killing us. Our next speaker is Rowena Gilmore-Vargas of Bedford Heights. She's a 31-year retired public servant who served as both a case manager in juvenile corrections and spent a decade as the special education secretary in the Ohio Department of Youth Services. And most importantly, Rowena is a wife, mother of 4, grandmother of 8, and great-grandmother of 1. Rowena brings a deeply personal perspective to us today. She lost her daughter, just 29 years old, to sickle cell anemia, a devastating genetic illness that disproportionately affects Black Americans. Her 14-year-old grandson also lives with this painful disease and is awaiting acceptance into a potential life-saving clinical trial. But that opportunity is now at risk. The Trump administration's proposed cuts to the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation threaten to halt critical medical research, particularly for diseases like sickle cell anemia that have long been underfunded. NIH, which supports nearly 50,000 research grants annually, is facing a $10 billion funding reduction, cuts that will force labs to shut down, delay clinical trials, and stop progress on life-saving treatments.
Wow.
Senator Bernie Moreno has dismissed the importance of NIH's infrastructure costs, misrepresenting them as wasteful spending. In reality, these funds sustain the very clinical trials that families like Rowena's depend on. To share her story and the urgent need to protect research funding, please welcome Rowena.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Bear with me. This is only my second time doing this, the first time being at Senator Moreno's downtown office a few weeks ago, but it is just that important to me that we don't allow the man who thinks he's king to get away with the things he's trying to get away with. All right, so as has been mentioned, my oldest daughter, Martina, was her name. I'm sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay, my oldest daughter, her name is Martina. I say is because she's always here in my heart. Passed away 14 years ago from complications due to sickle cell. Now, some of you, I'm sure, are probably familiar with the term sickle cell, the disease, but not actually what it entails. So I'll give you a little quick bit of information. People who are afflicted with sickle cell disease, unlike those of us whose red blood cells are soft and round, some of their red blood cells become sickle-shaped and hard, and because of that, it hinders the ability to carry oxygen to vital parts of the body, and sometimes the sickle cells become bunched up in other parts of the body, but mainly joints. That's what my daughter, it happened to her. They would bunch up in her joints, and she would then have what is known as a pain crisis. And a pain crisis, just to give you a point of reference, as I've been told, is akin to having a toothache. So imagine having to go through that on a regular basis. My daughter was in the hospital so much that, excuse me, I get emotional, that the night people who worked there knew me because we were in the hospital so much and I would stay with her. She, at 9 years old, she got a transient ischemic attack. And what that is a temporary stroke, for lack of a better explanation. And because of that, she had a test done and they realized that the sickle cells were narrowing the blood vessels in her brain. And so to keep her from having a permanent stroke, she started having to have monthly blood transfusions. When you get monthly blood transfusions, iron tends to build up in your body. But I became a nurse basically. They hooked her up to a machine 6 nights a week that I used to have to hook her up to draw the extra iron out of her body. She developed an allergic reaction to that and to all the other things that could help draw out that iron, and eventually she suffered from iron overload and complications with that. Her liver grew up to like 5 times its size. She was a little bitty thing and her stomach was way out here, and it eventually started failing, which can happen with sickle cell patients because the oxygen is hindered from getting into their organs. Their lifespan is shortened. She lived, like was said, to be 29 years old. She ended up going in the hospital the day she gave her youngest son a birthday party, his last birthday party. She had 2 sons. She gave him that party. We didn't know she was sick. She wouldn't let us know because she wanted to give him that party. After the party, she went in the hospital. She never came home. 2.5 months before that party, my youngest daughter had a baby. She got pregnant. Martina, my oldest daughter, helped her deliver that baby, her first nephew, and she was so happy and so excited. Well, the 2.5 months passed, and like I said, she was in the hospital, and she never came home. But before she passed, she made me promise to get her nephew tested for sickle cell disease. We did, and he was diagnosed with sickle cell disease. That was 14 years ago. In the interim, because of what the National Institute of Health and the National Science Foundation, the research that they do, they have been able to come up with gene therapy, the doctor and I were talking about, in different ways that they can help sickle cell patients with the complications they get from sickle cell. It can effectively eradicate it from them. It doesn't cure it, because if they have children, those children can be born with the sickle cell disease, but it'll eradicate the complications that they get and extend their life. Because at this point now, sickle cell patients, at the time my daughter passed, the life expectancy was like 30, and she made it to 29, and now I believe it's like 40. My 14-year-old grandson, he's 14 now, he's in high school, he plays in the marching band, he does so much, but he misses a lot of school because he too ends up in the hospital a lot. In fact, the last time I told this story, when we were at Moreno's office, the next day he was in the hospital with a sickle cell crisis, and he just came home last week from another one. He was approved last year to participate in one of those clinical trials, and they started doing the testing in December, and it was found out in January that he was disqualified from being able to participate in that particular one because his bilirubin was too high. However, there are other clinical trials he can participate in, but because they have pulled funding and are trying to effectively, in my opinion, shut everything down that helps anybody in this entire country. Because they have done that, it's up in the air whether he will be able to participate in any clinical trials that could potentially save his life. And because they have pulled funding, it's hindering the NIH and the NSF to do additional research that could potentially save his life, but also eradicate sickle cell altogether. And not just sickle cell, cancer. Find out what's going on with Alzheimer's, all kinds of disease, but they don't care. They don't care because it's not in their best interest in what they're trying to do. So what that has done for my family and I, it has not only given us back the fear, but angry and frustration that my grandson, my 14-year-old grandson, could suffer the same fate as his auntie, my daughter, Martina. And that is scary. But it also reinforces my determination to fight and not go silently into the dark. So what I would ask of everybody within the sound of my voice, and that you tell anybody who you can tell, to keep on fighting the fight. We must participate in the resistance. We must do the marches. We must do the calling. And we must do the boycotting. We must do the boycotting. People think those things aren't effective, but I know that the boycotting is definitely effective because all they understand is money. And if you take their money from them, they will stand up and pay attention. What I would like for the media to do, especially the national media to do, is to stop reporting everything Trump does, from what he eats for breakfast to what he poops at night. And please focus on the resistance, focus on what is being done to counter him, and focus on the lies that he tells. Pinpoint those, call him out on it. And lastly, what I want to know from Senator Moreno is what he's getting out of ignoring his constituents. Why is he so loyal to Donald Trump? Why is he voting for cuts that can actually cause the death of the people he claimed to support? And I really want to know if he's honorable enough to meet with his constituents instead of putting out fake pictures and fake media trying to make other people think what we know is not true, that he's not meeting with us and he doesn't give a hoot about those of us in Ohio. I just want to say, if you get discouraged, please, please, please deal with that, feel it, and then keep on going, because it is very important. It's up to us. Thank you.